You're a creature of the night, Michael. Just like out of a comic book. You're a vampire, Michael. My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy. Sammy, wait. Sam! Stay back. Just stay back and let me talk. Wait a minute.
Hey, Cassettes, and welcome back to the BOO Case Diaries. We're three young vampires learning everything we can about movies and TV and hopefully teaching you in the process. I'm Adam.
I'm Marcy.
I'm Robin. I wrote young this time because I was like, well, in vampire terms.
Yeah, exactly.
We're pretty young.
We are pretty young.
Yeah. In the summer of 1987, moviegoers were exposed to one of the most popular horror comedies of all time, Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Woo.
This frightening yet sometimes goofy romp introduced the idea of a teenage gang of vampires, living it up and having the time of their afterlives. Much like the famed Dracula, they lived in a dark and unkempt lair, surrounded by all that pleases them.
Thou
Shalt not kill.
The Lost Boys continues to be a hit with audiences over 35 years after its release. The film is often referenced in popular media and celebrated for its take on the horror genre. So let's join in on the fun. Ride with us to Santa Carla, California, the supposed murder capital of the world, according to some spray paint on a billboard. We'll sleep all day and party all night and learn about how fun it is to be a vampire.
Yes.
So this was Adam's first time ever watching this movie.
Yes. I think it had been mentioned before
Mm-hmm.
around these parts, perhaps on this very show. But I had never seen it, and boy, let me tell you about it.
You have some thoughts, huh, Adam?
It was possibly the most 80s movie to ever 80s
Ever 80s.
ever. Because it had the music and the atmosphere and the clothes and the vibe and the attitude
Yes.
of every 80s movie you've ever seen all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
And it was a lot to handle.
Beautiful, you say?
I didn't say
Just
that.
like the vampires?
I'm just kidding. It was just, I honestly had no expectations. Because I had no clue what it was about. Because you said it's a horror movie, but it's not really scary, and that was all you said.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't even know that it was meant to be funny. And it's just like, it really threw me for quite a loop. Because it just kept being weird the whole time. I was just like, I mean, I don't know.
So many people love this movie.
Yeah.
This is like one of those,
Yep.
like you grew up with
cult-
it type things.
Yeah, favorites.
And I remember when I was a kid, I did not watch this movie because I was not allowed to watch this
Nice.
movie.
It is R-rated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my siblings watched it. And when I caught glimpses of it,
Okay.
I would ask them, like, why can't I watch this movie? I've
Yeah.
seen Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
sure.
that's true.
Yeah.
that's rated R and also has 2 of these main actors in it.
Yeah.
You're like, I recognize them.
Yeah, I remember walking by and going, "That's Corey Feldman," and they'd be like, "Shoo, you can't watch this movie. This is, there's suggestive scenes."
Yep.
Quite.
I mean, vampires are quite sexy,
Yeah,
so.
his bed is filthy too.
Yeah.
That's another
Oh
thing.
my gosh, yeah.
Grief.
That's one thing I love about 80s movies. 80s movies bedrooms, like the teens
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
80s
yeah.
movies, their bedrooms are always
They're just
disgusting. Like, and I love that, because
Yeah.
it's so real. It's
Yeah.
so, but like, watch movies from like earlier.
Yep.
It's usually the kids have like pretty clean rooms.
yeah.
But in like 80s movies, it's unbelievable.
It's past just a few things on the floor and a
Yeah.
few things on the bed. It's like
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
like ooh.
An actual mess.
yeah.
Yeah, like when he lands on the bed after becoming a vampire.
Yes.
And he has like slow motion, like flops in the bed, and like the sheet has been ripped up off the, you know, and you can see the mattress, and like just it's so gross and so gritty. And it's like, yes, that's a teenage boy's bedroom, absolutely.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah. Well, Marcy, you grew up with a lot of boys.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
You
And
probably saw a lot.
There
of that.
was, in fact, a lot of clothes everywhere, and not
What
Yeah.
even is a hamper?
stuff, and honestly, right?
I see the cultural influence
Yeah,
it has now that I've seen it. I'm like, oh, I get where the whole like this type of vampire thing came.
Yep.
Because this ain't your daddy's vampire.
This isn't Dracula.
Yeah, this is not even a little bit. Like, there are some vampire rules at
exactly.
play here.
They stick to the regular vampire rules.
But it's in such a expectation subverting way. And it it knocked me around. I'll say that. It was quite an interesting watch, but it ended up being pretty enjoyable.
It really plays on the, you know, like the sexuality of vampires. And how, you know, the whole idea of the vampire movie in the beginning was kind of just innuendos for sex and, you know, those kinds of stories.
Right.
And then it also kind of adds another layer of a little bit of social commentary with these boys are actually lost. These are actual lost children, you know, that have been turned into vampires and have been essentially kind of left behind and are wallowing in this dark cave, you know, and no one's taking care of them.
Like, we can do whatever we want and we live forever, and that's that.
Because in the 80s, that was like kind of when, you know, the boy on the milk carton thing kind of started.
Right.
Which they really pushed in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, they like specifically turn one of the milk
cartons,
cartons
I think.
to show the missing.
Yeah.
So for those of you out there who haven't seen this movie, I believe you can find it online or get it from the library or DVD somewhere. Go check it out. Here is a summary for you. Sam and his older brother Michael have just moved into Santa Carla, California with their newly divorced mom. While staying with their grandfather, the boys try to find their place amongst the teenagers that live in the town and crowd the boardwalk each night. Michael immediately falls in love with a girl named Star, who is part of a mysterious gang that hangs out underground and only comes out at night. In an attempt to impress her, Michael gives in to the pressure of the gang's leader and drinks an unknown liquid, causing him to undergo some serious physical changes.
Wow.
What?
That's another thing. Like, don't take drinks from people, kids.
Yeah. I mean, Star even tries to warn him. She's like, it's blood.
She says it's blood. He goes, yeah, right. And then he just takes a swig of it.
Meanwhile, Sam befriends a couple of boys that are convinced that vampires walk among them, and they believe these undead fiends are responsible for a string of murders and missing children. Just as Sam begins to believe in the existence of vampires, he realizes that his brother is becoming one.
Yeah.
I think that's honestly the biggest catalyst for him to believe in them.
I mean,
you know?
Well, yeah, his brother, I mean, it's so quick. He drinks the blood and then he looks in the mirror and he's like, bro, your reflection is disappearing.
Yeah. Like that same night. Too.
Yeah.
And the two boys that he meets at the comic shop, which is a great scene, by the way, because they're like, what do you know? And he like explains all of comics to them, basically. It's like, oh, this is Superman number this, that. No, you can't have it. You can't sit here with the other, total nerd speak.
Yeah.
And it totally wins them over, which is hilarious. But then they try to get him to read the vampire comic. And he's like, oh, I don't like horror comics.
Yeah.
But it turns out to be like their field guide.
Yeah.
You know, which is very funny.
Like,
to the vampires.
It might save a life.
Yeah. That's another thing. I loved how confident those two were. But they never said that they had actually done this before.
Yeah.
They were just, we know how to kill vampires and we will do it.
Yeah. And
But
Yep.
you haven't. You act like you've done it for years.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the making of the movie.
All right.
Ooh, something different.
I wasn't going to make the joke this time, but that was really good. That was really good.
Thank you.
Writers Janice Fisher and James Jeremias developed the original story for The Lost Boys. It was an alternate universe to the one in J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, taking its name from the gang of children living in Neverland under Peter's leadership. The screenplay was a more family-friendly story than the one that eventually made it to the big screen. Richard Donner, the director known for the movies like The Goonies and Superman, was originally set to direct. But he was offered Lethal Weapon and decided to take the role as producer instead. Donner's wife, Lauren, had worked with Joel Schumacher on one of his previous films and only had positive things to say about him. This made Donner consider him for The Lost Boys.
Very nice.
Good choice.
Yeah, Richard Donner. Hey!
I do kind of wish, though, that we had both.
Oh, you want to see
like,
the G-rated?
I would kind of like to see the more Goonies-esque version, just because, I don't know, it'd be interesting.
Why not?
I think it would have been cool, too, because it's exactly what I expected from this movie when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I had found out about it and saw that Corey Feldman was in it. My immediately the Goonies.
Yeah.
But vampires, you know?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in a way, it does still kind of fit. Like, it does feel similar.
Yeah.
But it also has a lot more horror elements that a movie like a Goonies level movie wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And they say F a lot.
Yeah.
So,
It's a little more true to life because I remember being a kid and thinking, wow, 2 F words makes an R-rated movie.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm in 6th grade, and I know kids that say it all day long on the
Right,
playground.
yeah.
You know, I was like, it's so unrealistic that a movie about kids wouldn't have the F word in it all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's true.
Mark Canton, then president of Warner Brothers, took Schumacher out to lunch and asked him if he would be interested in directing a vampire movie. At that time, the plot was much more child-friendly, which made Schumacher hesitant to accept the job.
Yeah. It wasn't his typical kind of film.
Yeah. When Joel ultimately considered the possibilities of the film, he agreed to give it a chance. At that point, Jeff Boehm was hired as a screenwriter to revise the script, which was already almost a decade old at the time. Joel Schumacher was originally a fashion designer before he became a filmmaker. He created cutouts of what he thought the costumes should look like and showed them to Donner. The styles were very innovative for the time, with outfits that had never appeared in mainstream films before. This made Richard Donner confident that he had chosen the right director for the movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're wacky. Because you have, these vampires are what you'd expect from a 80s gang.
Yeah.
Turned up to 11. Right? They ride motorcycles.
Yep.
They wear lots of leather. And they are messing with everyone
Yeah.
in that way where they just knock trash cans over. You know what I mean? They're just
They're the personification of these damn kids.
Yeah.
exactly.
Kids these days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But way worse. One,
Yes.
because they know
Yeah.
they can't really get in trouble.
Yeah.
And two, they're they're immortal. So what are they going to do?
What are you going to do?
And then specifically with regards to the outfits, the leader has the leather jacket that you'd expect, but the rest of them are kind of more torn up than usual, as if they were in some kind of hairband.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it fits in. So that's why I say this movie is so distilled 80s.
Yeah.
It's this.
They took the kids, the actors, and the story, and they placed them in a real place, right?
Yep.
They're in
Yeah.
Santa Cruz, but they changed the name.
Yep.
They're in a real place. They're showing real footage of
Yeah.
kids on the street.
Yep.
And at the time, punk fashion and punk counterculture was it was kind of prevalent among teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so these outfits are far more geared toward that. But a lot of movies that came before it, the kids didn't dress like that.
Right.
Yeah,
You watch a movie like Nightmare on Elm Street. These are all kids that live in a suburb,
Yeah.
and they're all kind of well off, and they
Yeah.
they
and they
very
dress
preppy
like
and-
it. And,
Yeah. You don't usually you didn't see characters like this.
Yeah.
Honestly, Michael and Sam are that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
They
had
come from
a
that
suburb
kind of thing,
probably,
yeah.
and
Yeah. They look like they shop at the mall.
Exactly.
And the other kids look like they shop at out of garbage cans.
wherever they can.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like they shop at the mall and they cut the leather jackets in half and then they sew them back together with safety pins.
Yeah.
That.
Yep.
That's what they're wearing.
Yep.
As filming began, the comedic points in the movie were made up on the spot. The comedy confused Warner Brothers, and they would ask Schumacher if he were making a horror film or a comedy. He responded with yes every time.
Brilliant.
The executives seemed unsure about the combination of those two genres and weren't sure that horror comedy would work.
You kidding me?
I can't even believe that was a question.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, of course they work.
Of course
Those are like
they
two.
work.
Those are like two genres that are like basically wrapped around each other.
Yeah.
Yes, nowadays.
Especially now.
Especially
Dude.
now,
Yeah.
Anything, any kind of mainstream horror-esque thing, like I immediately think of the latest iteration of Wednesday,
Yeah.
the Addams Family, was that.
Yeah.
You know, it leaned heavily into comedy, but it still had its horror elements.
Right.
And that's why it was so popular,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah.
obviously way more besides that, but that's the one that immediately comes to mind in
Yeah.
recent times.
Horror comedies have gained popularity in recent years, but they weren't very big in the 1980s. There's often a thin line between what scares us and what makes us laugh. When a horror film goes a little too far, shows a little too much blood, or presents a plot too unbelievable, audiences might find it funny. Because laughing can be a natural release of anxiety, the combination of horror and comedy works really well.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
This is just something that people like, and of course it works. But when you explain it like that, it's like, you know, this is like scientifically going to work
Yeah.
because of how closely related
Mm-hmm.
the two reactions
Yeah.
are.
Cinematographer Michael Chapman was a big fan of old cheesy vampire movies, and even though he had left cinematography, he jumped at the chance to be director of photography on The Lost Boys. Chapman had worked on movies like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull before this film. Very serious movies.
Yeah.
For sure.
The Lost Boys was primarily shot on location in Santa Cruz, California. Joel Schumacher believed that if there were teenage vampires in the 1980s, they would probably live in Santa Cruz, with that glorious boardwalk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good place to
Yeah.
find them. But I'll say that I don't think I'd hang out there because I was just watching it. I was
Yeah.
like, there's too many people. It would be too much
Yeah.
for me. 'Cause
It would be so great for a vampire, though.
Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah,
you probably
it's
get a
true.
lot of people visiting, like, vacation type wise.
A lot of
For sure.
nightlife.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so
Yeah.
you can just blend into the nightlife, and
Yep.
then so many victims.
Yeah.
Because like if you're purposefully going to a place to expect it, like an amusement park, for example,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know you're gonna run into crowds and you're ready to deal with it or whatever.
Yeah.
But going to this boardwalk is just like a public place.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay to get in or anything.
No.
And it's just like I am anxious watching this. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, perfect place for vampires.
In the opening, the characters are driving through the town. The extras in these shots were regular people, just hanging out in the street. The city of Santa Cruz did not want to be connected to the crime that happens in the movie, so they asked the production to change the name of the town in the film. So the movie takes place in the fictional city of Santa Carla.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Murder capital of the world.
Like if it just took place in Santa Cruz, I don't think they'd worry too much.
Yeah.
But they specifically point out
Yeah.
there's a lot of murder happening
lot of
in this city
murder.
in particular.
yes.
And they're
yeah.
probably like, we don't like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, lots of missing children, lots of murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad
Lots of
times.
punks,
Why would
you know?
anyone live here?
2 Warner Brothers sound stages were also used. One housed the cave where the Lost Boys hung out, and the other was the home that Sam and Michael stay in with their mom and grandfather. The sets were created by production designer Bo Welch. He's worked on several films since, including Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, nice.
He's also married to the Catherine O'Hara.
Oh,
Yeah,
Aw.
that's pretty cool, huh?
Gotta love it.
nice connection.
Yeah. The comic book store featured in the movie was a real shop. The vampire comics that the kids read, however, were created specifically for the movie.
Ah, rats.
Yeah. I know.
It looked like a really cool comic shop,
It
though. Just
did.
wall-to-wall comics.
Yeah.
No BS.
Yep. They
I-
even had like bins of comics.
Yeah,
but
I imagine like it was locally owned and they walked in there with their film crew and they're like, hey, can we like shoot a movie in here? And they were like, hell yeah, you can.
Yeah, what kind of movie? It's a vampire movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
and you have a comic you made up?
Take
Wow,
all the
yes.
time you
Yeah.
need.
Especially because usually they pay people
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
when they do stuff like that. It's like, hey, we'll pay you this much money to use your comic shop.
Yeah.
The costumes in The Lost Boys reflect the punk counterculture of the 1980s. All throughout the film, you can see kids with dyed hair and mohawks wearing leather bands and long coats in the California sun. Sam, one of the main characters, wore clothes that stood out against the backdrop of his new home, which signified that he did not want to move there. Mm-hmm. He's got like the nice long coat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right,
and it's got like way too much white in it. You
Yeah.
know? Like,
yeah, he's very clean.
way too much light colors.
Yeah.
Greg Canham was in charge of the special effects makeup for the vampires. He grew up loving horror, especially creature features. Specifically, a 1963 episode of the sci-fi TV series The Outer Limits inspired him to pursue a career in special effects makeup.
You don't hear much about The Outer Limits.
No.
Not nearly as much as you hear about The Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Dick Smith, the makeup artist responsible for The Exorcist, was also a huge influence on Canham. He started practicing with makeup as a high schooler and later when he attended college. In the mid-1970s, he worked with the well-known artist Rick Baker. The two men worked together on a film called The Fury in 1978. Canham's Vampires and the Lost Boys fulfilled Joel Schumacher's vision of sleek monsters. The teenagers never completely change, they just become more intimidating versions of themselves. Canham designed contact lenses that become the focal point of the makeup. Contacts that change the look of a character's eyes were rare at the time and very, very uncomfortable. The actors could only wear them for 3 or 4 minutes because they completely blocked all oxygen from hitting the eyes, making them dry out. When Kiefer Sutherland cries in the film, it's because the contacts were making his eyes water. I think even now you're really not supposed to wear them for more
very long,
than so many hours.
Yeah.
Because they really do like dry out your eyes, even the current ones. So
Pass.
yeah. But they look really cool in the film.
That is
Yep,
true.
they
That
do.
is true. Because maybe vampires with glasses wouldn't have worked out so well.
Wait, let me put on my scary eyes. Hold on.
Yeah.
There we go.
Now you can be scared. Each actor also wore custom fangs that were designed by Canham. The teeth were understated versions of the ones we see in classic vampire films, and Canham really wanted them to look smooth like pearls.
These really, they just are pointier versions of our canines.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
basically what they are.
Yep.
And I love that.
There was a wire in each tooth, making them very strong, and they hooked onto the actor's real teeth. Canham's version of vampires was pretty groundbreaking and helped revitalize the vampires subgenre of horror. His makeup design was inspired by an old newspaper clipping of a tennis player. The photo was faded and made the cheekbones and forehead of the player's face seem more pronounced. This gave him the idea for the makeup used on the characters in their final vampire forms. Yeah, it's kind of just like a little bit of
Yeah.
extra like skin and stuff.
Yeah,
almost.
like the prosthetics are
Yeah.
it's almost like their brows are like super furrowed and
Yeah.
like their cheekbones are like really high and like
Yeah.
you could see, you know, like
Yeah.
that's yeah.
It's like in the middle of like a scrunch scream kind of like
Yeah.
face, but it's permanently that face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then when they do get the angry, it's like even more.
Yes, yes. And like vampires have always been sexy, but for this movie it was like
Yeah.
how do we make them sexy for today? Like how
like-
could
Yeah.
you know,
What
like
are
Yeah.
teenagers into right now?
yes, like we're gonna cast all these real, you know, attractive
Right,
yeah,
young
right.
men to play these characters. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now how you
All
know
right.
Yeah.
that's what
How do we
our
not
baseline.
hide their beauty?
Yeah.
Because there's this whole thing of the vampires being alluring, almost
Yes.
like
Yeah.
almost like they're not forcing their victims. It's almost like they're pulling their victims and they're
Yes.
tempting their
Yep.
victims
Yep.
because they don't know they're about to become a victim kind of thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that the like classic vampire wouldn't have worked on any kid,
Yeah.
right? So it had to be what would a victim be attracted to
Right.
now.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, I mean, like if Dracula showed up at a convenience store today, people would probably
Yeah.
laugh at him
yeah.
Yeah.
because he would look ridiculous, like the 1930s version of Dracula.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you gotta kind of make them look attractive to people
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You know,
Plants or things evolve, especially like carnivorous plants. They attract their prey because they can't move.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like they're specifically designed to work on this
Exactly.
prey.
Yeah.
Yep. But what's interesting though is Joel Schumacher talks about how, a lot of the other monsters aren't really beautiful. They're not like, sexy like a vampire is. He brings up, I think the Black Lagoon, Wolfman, all that kind of stuff. But what's interesting is that in Twilight, they do kind of make the werewolves sexy, at least before they become wolves.
Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Werewolves are, I wouldn't say that they're as sexy as vampires.
Yeah.
But they still kind of follow the same beats. Like, they still abduct women.
That's true.
They still bite. They still,
that's
you know
a
what
good
I mean?
point. That's a good
point.
point.
And, a lot of men depicted in romance stuff have a lot of hair. Hair is
that's
not
true.
I was going to say...
Joel Schumacher did not think hair was sexy,
well, he's not the target audience.
I know. I just found it so funny.
I was going to say that it's kind of like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because obviously it's more nuanced than this, but you could ballpark two kind of like men levels where one is like this like lumberjack men or like secret agent men. I don't know, like just like a lot more like straight clean kind of stuff.
Well, see, it's the thing, like werewolves will tear you apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas vampires, it's more like a gentle thing, right?
Yeah.
They just bite your neck and drain your blood. That's also there's a lot of sexual innuendo in it.
You take the death part out and you're left with
exactly.
That's true. Mm-hmm. The special effects makeup team created casts of the actors' faces. The prosthetics were hand sculpted from foam latex and painted with PAX paint, which is a very strong adhesive makeup. Canham was blown away by how well the young actors dealt with the heavy makeup and prosthetics.
Man, we talk about this in nearly every movie with these kinds of effects in it, where the actors have to sit for hours to get their makeup on and stuff like that. And I have a hard time imagining it.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to sit through it once to like see, and then but at any point I could just say, okay, I'm done. Not actually have to sit for the 3 hours or more. Because I just I want to know how difficult is it, because it sounds horrific. But I am curious as to how it works.
I love dressing up so much. I want to do it.
Yeah.
I want to sit in a chair and transform. I think that'd be so cool.
Yeah, I think it would be very cool.
Yeah. He said that Kiefer Sutherland told him when he was like doing the cast for his face. Yeah. Kiefer Sutherland was like, "Don't tell anybody, but I'm 17. I told them I was 18. Don't tell anybody."
Oh my Christ.
And he said that he thought to himself, he was like, "How am I gonna turn this child into a vampire?" Like,
oh my god.
This little kid, like, he was so sweet and cute.
They feel a lot more adult in the movie,
though. They really do.
The Lost Boys didn't have a large budget, so there weren't a lot of special effects that the production could afford. Because of this, we don't see the vampires in full until late in the film. Early on, there are shots from the vampires' perspective as they swoop down and snatch up their prey, which Schumacher found to be more frightening anyway. I mean, we always learn, don't show the monster right away.
I was like, that's cool that they're doing this, like whether it was a budget choice or not, because I don't know, it did feel it felt very creepy.
Yep. Plus, who doesn't want to rip off
some first person,
the top of a convertible, right?
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
The Lost Boys benefits from a fantastic cast, including a group of teen stars at the beginning of their careers. Jason Patric plays Michael. Jason came on the first day that Joel was auditioning. He had just turned 18 and was serious about his acting. He had the looks and the talent, but he did not originally want the part. His manager and Schumacher had to take about 6 weeks to convince him. He's been in several films since Lost Boys and is still acting today.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think he thought it was going to be an exploitative movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Where it was just like gore for the sake of gore, like that kind of thing.
Yep. And just vampires, just horror.
Yeah.
Didn't want that. Corey Haim plays Sam, the younger brother. Corey was just 13 and had done a film called Lucas. This is the first movie to star him with Corey Feldman, which would begin them as a famous duo.
The two Coreys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. Diane Wiest plays their mother, Lucy. Schumacher had her in mind for the role from the beginning and was thrilled that she said yes.
I love her. She's so sweet.
So sweet. Diane had just won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in Hannah and Her Sisters. Barnard Hughes plays the grandpa. Schumacher said he was perfect for the role and so much fun to work with. He was a Broadway and theater actor that became known for his character acting, especially from the 1978 production of Hugh Leonard's Da.
This character is ridiculous. I love him.
Yeah.
I mean, just his introduction.
He's so funny. In one of my favorite moments, he shows off this sweet restored car that he's got. He's like, "Oh yeah, look at that!" And he's like, Sam gets in with him. He starts like, "Oh, you gotta let it warm up. Listen to that, baby. It sounds awesome." And he's like, "Here we go. We're gonna go to town." And then he just gets out.
Okay, let's go to town. Yeah, we having fun or what?
I thought we were going to town.
That's as close to town as I like to get.
Yep. He turns off the engine.
That's as close to town as I want to be. And I'm like, wow.
You see, as soon as the engine goes off, Sam's face just like drops.
Yeah,
Aw,
yeah.
man.
It's so good. I love it. And then the actual car that he drives to town is that like absolute junk truck
truck
that
thing.
looks like it's just pieced together with tape and nails.
Yeah.
And that horn, that classic La Cucaracha horn,
Yeah.
but it doesn't quite work. It's great.
He's a classic grandfather character. He's
Yeah.
really good at being like the kooky grandpa.
Yeah.
I love it.
Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander were the Frog brothers.
Oh.
Yeah. Corey Feldman had stayed good friends with Richard Donner from his directing in The Goonies, and Donner called him up for this role and told him he would be perfect for it.
He was.
Yeah, he was right on.
Yeah.
Jameson Newlander had Schumacher as a guest in the acting class he was taking, and this gave him the confidence to go in for the audition, especially since Schumacher had answered one of his questions.
Aw.
It was kind of like he was like, I kind of know this guy. Like, I think we made eye contact kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I can work with
it could work. Feldman and Newlander were told that they were the G.I. Joes of the movie. They were to take themselves very seriously. Feldman was even told to watch all of the Rocky and Rambo type movies to model his character after.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
you
good
could just
stuff.
hear it. and
Yes.
see, like,
And they do like the war paint and the
and the red like
yes.
thing tied around his head.
They're my favorite part of this movie. They're the part of this movie that makes me feel like it's like the leftover part from the original Kid-ified movie.
Yeah.
Because these two are goofy, but they take things very seriously. And they're like vampire hunters. They pour garlic on that guy's spaghetti.
Yeah.
Like, this'll work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get him.
yeah.
We'll get him.
This'll get him. Yeah.
This is just our cover. We're dedicated to a higher purpose. We're fighters for truth, justice, and the American way.
Right.
I mean, they're so like in a real world they would be like really ridiculous, but they're so right in this one.
This movie, that makes sense.
Everything they say is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamie Gertz plays Star. Schumacher had envisioned a blonde, pixie-like character for Star, but thankfully, Jason Patrick had pushed for Jamie, as they had done a play together previously.
One thing that happened early on in the movie that I was just like, what's happening right now is they go to the boardwalk and there's like a concert happening.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
when Star and them I think Star first, but then kind of everyone is introduced in the scene.
Yeah.
Or they meet Michael. And she's just dancing
Mm-hmm.
to the music.
Doing her own thing.
Which, by the way, this band sounds great, and they're
Oh, yeah.
absolutely crazy.
The guy that's in that band,
Yeah.
that was Tina Turner's saxophone player.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he is like buffety buff.
He's so buff
Yep.
and oily. But
they oiled him down.
But he's putting on the best show that that Boardwalk has ever seen. Anyway, when they show Star dancing and then Michael spots her out of the crowd, he's just like does the teenage boy thing that drives me insane, where he just stares at her. And you can see how awkward it is.
Yeah, she's like, stop.
She wants to keep dancing, but she's like, stop looking at me now, please. I guess eventually it turns out fine.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, but it starts out like, bro.
Yeah.
I get that he was like awestruck by her.
Yeah.
Because she's very beautiful.
Yeah.
But
come on, bro.
Come on.
bro. Just go say hi, dude.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland plays David, the leader of the Teen Vamps. Kiefer had just wrapped his first U.S. film, which was Stand By Me.
Yay.
He had also finished At Close Range, where he had a close-up in the film. Schumacher saw this close-up and wanted him to audition. Yeah. Schumacher said that Kiefer was a great character actor, and that even though he has the least amount of dialogue in the film, his presence shines throughout the entire film.
Yeah, you would never even realize that he had the least amount of dialogue.
That's
he's
crazy,
so,
actually.
Yeah, he's so intense. I love him so much.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
I almost don't believe that.
Yeah, no,
just because it doesn't feel like that at all.
He's
because
so
he's
important.
He's so clearly the leader
Yeah.
of this group and does like basically does the transformation of Michael and all that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
How are those maggots? Maggots, Michael. You're eating maggots. How do they taste?
Edward Herrmann plays Max, though you may know him better as the grandpa from Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Schumacher really needed a nice guy to play Max. Someone you would not suspect as the character that is more domesticated, and also a mix of whimsy and scary. The other Lost Boys were played by Chance Michael Corbett, who was the youngest. He played Little Laddie. And then there was Brooke McCart, Billy Worth, and then, of course, you may recognize Alex Winter.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
When I
Bill and
saw
Ted.
him, I was
Yep.
like, Bill, what are you doing here? Because I didn't know who to expect.
Yeah,
because I didn't even look. I didn't look up anything. I just went into this movie blind.
Yep.
The only thing I saw was the cover.
Yeah.
But I didn't I didn't inspect it or anything. But yeah, I was just like, and then actually, then Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, like, what?
So many.
They keep coming.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes the Lost Boys stand out is the eerie score and soundtrack filled with recognizable songs. As you two sang earlier, am I right? Well-known composer Thomas Newman wrote the score. Newman has since composed films like Finding Nemo and A Series of Unfortunate Events. He's one of the most well-known composers in Hollywood.
Thomas Newman is a really good composer, and he has done a lot of movies. You've definitely heard his music. He wrote the score for several Pixar movies like Finding Nemo and WALL-E. And
During the opening of the movie, we hear a cover of The Doors' People Are Strange by Echo and the Bunnymen, accompanied by Ray Manzarek, the original keyboard artist for The Doors. Schumacher wanted the song in the movie because he felt like the Lost Boys would identify with Jim Morrison's music. So he asked Manzarek to re-record the song with the new artist.
yeah, it's a Doors song being sung by Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yeah, very interesting. Cry Little Sister, the Lost Boys theme, was written for the film by Mike Minieri and Gerard McMahon. The song was a hit and made it all the way to number 15 on the Billboard Top 200.
Ooh.
This is the weird, like, Ten Commandments song.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it sounds like Ten
So
It
Thou
does.
shalt not murder.
whatever.
Insert any sin.
Oh, boy.
It's quite weird because it keeps coming back.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm like never ready for it.
And there's like, it's anytime there's like a song with like a children's choir in it randomly is creepy.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. It's such a juxtaposition for this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be jarring.
And it feels religious, which is such an interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the vampires.
Yep.
And it's almost, it's like he's joining a cult, right? And it's like, it feels like reverent and religious, and it's just this odd, because he drinks the blood, and that's when you hear the song again.
Yeah.
And like everything's like getting woozy.
Yeah. Which, it's like, I'm sorry, I would not have drunk. Like, I mean, he literally just saw worms and maggots and then saw it as regular food. Like, if I'm seeing that kind of crazy crap, and then somebody offers me a drink before that is even happened, I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, but he wanted to be cool, man.
I know.
He wanted
peer pressure.
He wanted Star to like him that
He was
bad.
trying to impress Star.
I know. I'm not a teenager.
But, like,
teenage boy. I guess.
My first thought, like, he, because at the beginning when he sees Star and he starts to talk to her, and he follows her, and then she gets on the back of David's bike.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, well, she's off the.
Yeah, she's off the market, dude.
Right? Yeah.
What are you doing?
You can't chase her anymore, bro.
He's no good for her, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to get stabbed. Like, all right, now we're going to talk a little bit about the reception that this movie received and some of its lasting impact.
All right.
The Lost Boys had a domestic gross of over $5.2 million on its opening weekend, placing it at number 2.
Ooh.
In the end, it generated domestic revenue of almost $32.2 million, with a budget of only $8.5 million.
All right.
So it kind of smashed it.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it did a great job.
We mentioned how low the budget was, and that is pretty low.
This is not like a movie that was a flop.
Yeah.
And then rose to fame later. It was pretty popular immediately.
Yeah.
The movie has a 77% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, based on, funny enough, 77 reviews,
Ooh, all right.
with an average rating of 6.4 out of 10. The general consensus among critics is that the movie is, quote, flawed but eminently watchable. Joel Schumacher's teen vampire thriller blends horror, humor, and plenty of visual style with standout performances from a cast full of young 1980s stars.
Yeah, this is definitely a rewatchable movie. This is a movie you can watch with your friends. This is a movie that you can watch at a party.
Yeah.
It's silly, but it's got those elements of horror in it. So it's definitely a horror movie, but it's not going to keep you up at night.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was cool with this one.
Yep. Exactly.
It get low on the scare meter. In his review of Lost Boys, Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 stars out of 4, while appreciating the photography and, quote, a cast that's good right down the line. However, he ultimately called the movie an ambitious entertainment that starts out well but ends up selling its soul.
Interesting.
Which
Wow.
What does he mean by that?
I don't know, because
Ends up selling his soul.
because I feel like it did. Sure, maybe there's some weirdness to the end, the finale, and it does kind of abruptly just like, and it's over.
Maybe because it kind of sells out to the concept of a happy ending.
Oh,
Maybe
That's because like he becomes a vampire, and it's like usually there's really no coming back from that.
Yeah.
Like you're a vampire and you're undead forever, and that's your life,
so.
and that's But like it's a little different at the end of this movie. You know what I mean?
Potentially, yeah.
That's true.
I don't know.
Additionally, Diane Weist's character was described as a dopey mom by Karen James of the New York Times. And Bernard Hughes' character was described as a caricature of a feisty old grandpa. She thought the movie was more of a comedy than a horror.
I mean, the movie is funny.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say she's a dopey mom, though.
No, me neither.
I would agree. I can see where that perspective comes from, because she's just kind of like going through it, saying like, oh, you're just making it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's understandable that she's a recently divorced mother of 2
Yeah.
who's just trying to make it and happens to meet, at the time, a nice guy who could become something. Who knows?
Ends up being...
But besides that, she's doing what's best for her in this scenario, so we can't call her anything.
You know, you gotta think, she's like, these kids did not want to move here. They'd probably be coming up with all kinds of reasons to not stay here. Like,
I mean, really, theoretically, like, think about it logically. Like, would you believe your kid?
Right?
If your kid was, I mean, I would be like, okay, something's going on.
Yeah.
We could report something. But, I mean...
Vampires.
Vampires, I don't know about that. You know?
Yeah, and she's doing, like, a good job as a mom in this scenario.
Yeah.
Like, she can clearly see that, especially with Michael, that something is up. Because he's always out during in the evening, and he comes home late, and he sleeps all day. Like, she tries, there's a scene where she tries to sit him down and talk to him. Like, she's like, are we still friends? Can we talk?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And then obviously he does his teen boy thing and just like sloughs it off.
Yeah.
But like, you can't blame her for that.
Yeah.
The other thing about the feisty grandpa though is quite on point, I'd say.
Yes.
Yeah.
The film won 3 out of the 8 awards it was nominated for, including the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film.
Yay.
Saturn Award. The others were both Young Artist Awards for Best Young Actor in a Horror Motion Picture, Corey Feldman, and Teenage Favorite Horror/Drama Motion Picture.
Yeah.
Nice.
Some pretty good stuff. The Lost Boys is recognized for changing how vampires are portrayed in popular culture and giving the vampire genre a more youthful appeal. For example, it could be said that later shows and movies like Buffy the Vampire Slayer were inspired by this.
Buffy was definitely inspired by this.
Oh, yeah.
The look of the vampires in Buffy is so similar to how the vampires look in this movie. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, it was lifted right from this movie. Like the prominent features, like the cheekbones, and like we talked about those lines in the face, and like the red eyes. Very much, you know, I'm a teenager. Whoop, I'm actually a vampire. You know, like, you can definitely see the resemblance.
Yeah, absolutely. And more beside that too.
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned Twilight a while ago. Sure, not quite the same. But
Twilight's not the same because the vampires never really look scary in Twilight.
Right, but it definitely is like down the river of this kind of like change in vampire culture.
Yes, where it's like they're just like you and me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It would continue to garner fans with the release of a novelization of the film, comic books based on the Frog Brothers, and 2 straight-to-DVD sequels.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am very interested in the Frog Brothers comics.
Yeah.
Because I want to see them get into some other vampire slaying antics.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some fun facts.
Oh boy.
Fun facts. Before selecting the final cast, Schumacher and renowned casting director Marion Doherty reportedly sat through numerous auditions with eager young performers. Ben Stiller claimed to be one of those newcomers. At the Hollywood Life Young Hollywood Awards in 2010, Stiller reportedly commented, "The last time I saw a room full of so many talented faces was when I auditioned for The Lost Boys. It was between me, Kiefer, and the 2 Coreys."
Oh boy.
And Kiefer and the 2 Coreys both got the part, so he's the only one that didn't make it.
Sorry, buddy.
Man. He didn't have enough horror to his comedy, huh?
I guess so, but I mean, he ended up being in a lot of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Warner Brothers held a research screening of the movie in Long Beach before it was released. About 750 people attended, and the crowd was akin to a rock concert. Schumacher said that some of the viewers got so worked up, they ripped the stuffing out of their seats.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I could not imagine getting so hyped up that I would wreck personal property of wherever I am. Like that.
That's wild.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
This is like, I mean, this was the first time they were seeing something like this, too.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah. I mean...
Just the
Wild.
reveal of the vampires, I guess.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because
and
it's
seeing
kept...
people, like, teens seeing themselves represented on screen for the first time,
That's
like, kind of
true.
as they are.
That's a good point. Because it's like, and as far as the vampires go, they're kept kind of under wraps for a long time.
Yeah.
Until Michael starts to change. But even then, they still haven't, like, truly revealed themselves as vampires.
Yeah.
You know, because that's like the whole beach attack scene
Yeah.
is when it's like And here we are, full reveal
this is it.
vampires.
Yep.
So,
David, Kiefer Sutherland's character,
Yeah.
wears gloves to hide that Sutherland broke his wrist during filming. Ironically, given that the young vamps are bikers, Sutherland sustained his injury after falling off of his own motorbike.
Yeah.
what a fool.
He was a biker.
What are the odds,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Which that scene with the sand, they said was incredibly dangerous to actually do
Yeah,
because sand
Yeah,
is
because they're not
such
like
a...
built for sand.
I actually thought about that while it was happening. I was like,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem safe.
Yeah.
And it's the middle of the night, and they're going super fast, and it looked like there were people on that beach. It's bad. It's all right.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Very bad. Yeah, Schumacher said that if it were made today, they would probably have to have them wear bicycle helmet or not bike helmets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that he was like it was just so much cooler without helmets.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
yeah.
But he's a big proponent. Like he's like, please wear helmets. But
nowadays they wouldn't have had them. Like they wouldn't have had them on the
actually,
beach at all.
that's true. They
Like
would've.
I think they probably would have at least had them on a hard track and like CG'd
made
the
it
beach
look
in.
like
Yeah.
or just some kind of perspective trick where there's a dune in front of the track so we don't see it,
Yeah.
and then just edit in like some particles of sand.
Yeah, they would probably do it that way.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
there's, I mean,
They would do some
Too
workaround.
dangerous. So, any remaining thoughts about this ridiculous 80s romp?
That we love.
If there ever was one, it was this one.
This movie is just so much fun. I really
Yeah.
enjoy it. I love that, there are actors from other 80s movies that I like, and it just feels, I don't know, it just belongs like in the 80s movies.
Yeah.
I love how 1980s it is. I was not alive in the 80s, so this is how I get to experience it by watching these movies.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I really like the whole thing. I love the Frog Brothers. I think that the way they set up vampires in this was really smart. And I think it's so cool that it really influenced teen vampire media from that point on. Still, like, I mean, it's probably influenced so many books and movies and TV shows. And so just so many different things.
Exactly.
It's not like, to me, it's not like laugh out loud funny, but it is so ridiculous that you can see the humor in the movie.
Yeah.
And especially with a group of friends, you'd be laughing for sure.
Yeah.
Just out of the absurdity of it. But it's great that it has such a lasting influence because you really can't see it. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, now that I have seen it, I understand how it all began.
Yeah.
Because without it, you're just like, okay, I guess vampires are like this.
Yeah.
But seeing where it first happened, it's like, okay, I see the transition now. Because I don't think it would have happened anywhere else. It had to happen in an 80s movie like this. It had to happen in a place where they were like punks and outsiders.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would have felt too much of a whiplash change.
It's the continuing of the horror tradition where it's like, these people can be on screen, but it's got to be a horror movie,
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like that type of stuff,
Yes.
where it's like, seeing the kids dress and punk and do all of that stuff. It's like, well, if they're a gang of vampires, it makes sense, But if it was like
no normal kid would do that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no.
So it's such but that's just like kind of, but like it's how horror has always been. That's like, it's like the entryway, it's the gateway for counterculture to just, and so make it into the mainstream.
Yeah, that's why it's had horror in general has had such a lasting impact on just pop culture because there are horror elements that seep into everything. I mean, even something as cookie cutter, clean slate as Disney products will have horror elements in them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to have monsters, vampires, and gore, but the spooks are there, man.
There's been Disney stuff that referenced this movie.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Starting out as a counterculture thing, but has fully become mainstream. I mean, sure, it's maybe towards the edge of mainstream still, because not everyone likes horror.
Yeah.
But it's there. The Lost Boys delivers on its promise for a fun teen romp with just enough horror to keep the audience on its toes. It completely submerges viewers into the 1980s with a cast of future stars before the launch of their careers. The 1980s was clearly a great decade for horror, with campy classics like A Nightmare on Elm Street and Evil Dead 2 finding their places in the hearts of the viewers for decades to come. Funny enough, Nightmare on Elm Street was immediately recommended after I finished this
After you watched this.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Yep.
But when The Lost Boys hit the big screen, it scratched an itch that other teen horror films hadn't. It had been over half a century since Universal's Dracula, and vampire movies weren't popular. The movie changed that by creating a new kind of vampire, one that wore modern clothing, had an updated sex appeal, and appealed to the modern world. In some ways, The Lost Boys changed the aesthetic of the modern film vampire, and altered the vampire horror subgenre altogether. I guess you could say that this fantastic movie hasn't lost its appeal. Oh, man. Great times. Whew, thank you all so much for listening. And I guess that is going to be a case closed. Yeah,
Woo!
baby.
We did it.
On a roll.
Thank you all so much for continuing to listen to us through this fantastic month of spooky movies. If you would like to find our other stuff, especially the history of horror, Universal Monsters, and other episodes like that, go to blackcasediaries.com or any other podcast listening platform. You'll find them all. And before we go, we'd like to thank our patrons, John, JD, Anthony, Shelly, Bob, Jaron, and Jacob. You guys rock the house down.
All right.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And we hope you enjoyed the extended version of this episode, only available on patreon.com/blackcasediaries. We will see you all next time.
Goodbye. Thou shalt
not.
Michael Emerson! Come on down!